Hello everybody, my name is Michael, and in today's video what we're going to be doing is this right here. So if that looks interesting to you guys, please carry on and watch the video. And also one more thing before we get into the video, if you enjoy what I do here, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. It really helps me out and lets me know you enjoy the video. But with all that out of the way, let's get into that video. Okay, to celebrate the new season of The Legend of Vox Machina, what I'm going to do is paint up one of the miniatures, of course, from the main cast of characters, and I'm going to be painting up Keyleth here. And to start off with painting up Keyleth, I'm going to be starting off with her skin. But as you can see, I've already primed up the model. And what I've done is a zenithal highlight prime, and that is priming in black, then coming from above with a white, and just spraying on top to catch all of those highlights. And this is so you can, of course, see your volumes and where your shadows are, making a keep an eye and notice of where shadows are as you're painting up the miniature, so you can really pay attention to where washes go and where you want to place the highlights. But as you can see here, all I've done is I'm coming in with a skin color. This is just sort of a generic sort of I believe this one that I am using is natural flesh, so this is what I want to use as a base coat for my flesh color. Then once we have our skin, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with some orange, and this is going to be for her hair. She has distinctively orange red hair, or in this case very vibrant bright orange, so I want to use a orange to base coat this. Now her hair has a nice flowing motion in there that wraps around the back of her hair right out to the side, as she's sort of like using some sort of magic ability here, or like a gust of wind. And so her hair is sculpted in a way that it's got it flowing out to the front, so be aware that that there is wrapping around the front as you do so. And of course orange is a really hard color to paint over. It is very thin in pigmentation, so you'll have to do a few layers of this to build up that color and make that look right. Then once we have that complete, what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be placing a wash over top. Now I'm going to be using Reikland Flesh Shade for this, but any type of flesh colored or skin colored wash is going to be great here, and we want to apply it to all the areas we've painted up so far. And the reason why I am also including painting it over the entirety of her hair as well, even though it's not a skin, is that it has a very slight red pigmentation in it, like a reddish brownish color, so it's going to add into the values and the colors of her hair to give it a more interesting sort of look. As well as that too, you can be a little bit more sloppy with it and not care too much as you're trying to get on the skin with that hair wrapping around, so I wanted to simplify the steps and combine them together as one when we're washing over top. So now we're going to add just a little bit more colour to that hair, and this is giving it a red wash over top of the wash that we already hit complete. But make sure, of course, the wash is dry before applying the second one. And this is just to add in a little bit more colour, give it some slight more dimensionality into it, because she is a redhead, but we don't want to make it all straight one colour of hair, so that's why I wanted to try and go for the two different washes, as well as we have the orange. So hopefully within the nice recesses that are sculpted into this model, you'll get some different colour and variations in her hair colour. Then once we have that complete, what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be coming in with a khaki colour, and this is to be painting up her antler crown that she wears around her head. So making sure that we get in there and making definitely sure that we want to really separate out the hair from the actual crown on her head that is sculpted in there. But since it's such a small detail, as you can see here, I've switched to a smaller, thinner brush so I don't accidentally get any over spillage in that area, and I can separate them out just that little bit more. But once you've picked that out, you'll have her crown nicely all painted up there, and as you can see, it's quite a small detail, so don't be afraid to do what I did here and switch to a smaller brush. Then once we have her antlers painted up, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go down to the bottom of her, and we're going to paint in her boots. And this is just a nice simple brown here. Any sort of brown is going to be great for your baseline here. Now she is going to have a few different browns over the entirety of the model, with her staff as well as her belt and pouches around here. So I'm going to do varying stages of browns here, different browns to separate them out. But if you wanted to simplify and really ease up on the time spent painting the miniature, you could easily paint all of these areas the same brown. But for me, I'm going a little bit different color and tones with our browns, so we can see those places are clearly separated out and it looks different over the model, just giving it a little bit more visual appeal. So now we have that complete, what we're going to be doing is we are going to be painting up Keyleth's dress. And for this, I'm going with her iconic sort of colour that she has for her dress and what you see in a lot of her official artwork, and that is going to be a green. Now for me, I'm picking out sort of the colour that I have on me that is closely associated with a lot of her official artwork and stuff like that. So what you have may be slightly different, maybe you want to go with a different green. But for what I have here, I'm going for it as close as I can with the paints I have available. Now, for me, this paint is actually quite thin, so I'm going to have to build this up in a few layers over top of the model. You may not need as many layers as me. I think I ended up by doing about 4 or 5 layers, as mine is quite thin. But just all you want to do is focus on that dress, getting a really good solid base coat down. Then once I have that base coat down, I'm actually going to come in with a highlight now because I want to do a little bit more working on that dress and try and make that stand out a little bit more. So what I've done is I've come in with a lighter color green here, and I'm going to be picking out all the highest ridges and folds and all of those parts that are really going to stick out on the model, that are really sort of facing up towards the sun or at a natural high point. Is I want to be using this lighter green to do that. Now you can use any sort of lighter green you want here. It's totally up to you what you want to do. I just went up for looking for one that was just a shade lighter and looked like it would be a natural highlight. So just a matter of going all over the model and picking out those areas you can see. Then once we have those highlights on the dress picked out, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with Burntumber. This is another brown, and I'm going to use this for my belt pouches and my belt there. As well as that too, I'm also going to be using this as the base color for the nice staff that she has on her. Now you see a lot of artwork depicting it as green, sort of a yellowish green or a brown, so totally up to you with what you want to go here. I'm going with the classic sort of traditional nice wooden staff that's been sculpted and shaped it around, so I'm going to go with a brown here, but totally up to you with what you want to go in your miniature. If you're painting up the same miniature as me, I want to keep with that nice Druidic feel that Keyleth has on her, so going with the natural wooden staff is, I think, appropriate for her. Then once I have that completed, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with a green wash here, and this is going to be going over everywhere that we've painted that hasn't had a wash applied to it before. So it's avoiding areas like the hair and the skin, of course. And I'm going to be going with the dress, the boots and the staff. I'm all giving it this green tint, so applying the green wash over all of that, and that's just going to hopefully help wash everything down, really get into those shadows, but also just tint everything slightly green and give it that more naturist feel, hopefully, is my plan behind it. That's the method to it anyway. We'll see how well that comes out when the wash dries, because I don't know, this is going as I'm doing it. I'm just hoping here and hopefully that it pays off and it doesn't turn everything too green, but we can always paint back over it if we're not happy with it. But for me, I want to tint everything just that little bit green. Now on this model, she also has just this little bit of cloth that's just hanging from the front of her dress here. I wasn't quite sure what color to do here, or you don't really see too much artwork with anything there, so I'm going to go with a color that's going to really pop out against the greens and the oranges that we're using here, and for me that's going to be purple, and it's going to help go and tie all of these colors together and make it look a little bit more pleasant on the eyes. Totally up to you what you want to do here if you were painting the miniature like me, but I'm going to go with purple, something nice and bold but also works with all the colors we already have painted up. Then once we have that painted up, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with some skin color for our highlights. Now for me, I'm just basically going over the original color that I used here, which is a neutral flesh tone, and I'm just coming in, because we have that wash that's darkened all of our areas of skin down, we can easily place the original color here and it gives us a nice highlight. So just going through and picking those areas that are naturally in the tops of raised areas, like I did her hand there with her fingers sticking out that are nicely facing towards the sun. Just picking out little areas like that, like bridge of her nose, the cheeks, the tip of her ear, just all over little places like that. Now we have her skin highlighted up. What we're going to do now is we're going to come in with our original orange color here, and we're going to use this as a highlight. And now that you can see, since we've applied the washes over top and it's all been darkened down, the orange really stands out as a crazy strong highlight, and this is great for what we want here, because we're just going to be picking out all of those little natural strands as best we can. I'm not perfect at this yet, I'm still working on it. As you can see, I've switched to a smaller brush to do this, and I'm just going through and picking out all of those nice rays sculpted in details as nicely as I can, where the sun is sort of gonna hit and look a little bit more natural to give in those nice vibrant bright highlights. And as you can see, with how drastically we've darkened down the colors, we have some nice dramatic highlights on the hair. Okay, so now we've got that complete, what we're going to do is we're actually going to come in with some yellow now. And for this, I'm going to be picking out some areas of trim. So this is areas like the bottom of the dress. She also has these two stripes going up through the chest area of her clothing as well, and picking these areas out with this yellow is going to really help tie things together, I think, and make it look a little bit more like Keyleth and following her artwork, as she has sort of yellow trimmings on her as well in official artwork, and it really does help add a little bit more detail to this entire piece as well. For just a few simple areas to pick out with a yellow, it really does help add that little bit more visual interest and a little bit more complexity to the entirety of the piece. So just going around, as you can see, I've switched to a finer brush to do this because I want to really get these trims right and not accidentally paint over any area that we've already painted up. Then once we have those trimmed areas completed, what we're going to do now is I'm going to come in with a reddish maroon color. For me, this is Crusted Saw here, and I'm going to be using this for the underside of Keyleth's cloak. Now there is a number of colors you could use for this cloak here. I've seen many online of varying colors. To her official artwork has it, I believe, is sort of like a green cloak. Later on, there's so many options you could go here, and I wanted to go with what felt right for me, and I felt like this sort of burgundy maroon color was really sort of speaking to me when I was looking at it as I was going through my colors, figuring out what I wanted to pick for this. And I think it really does tie all of these colors together and complements them well. So for me, this is what the color I'm going to be using for the underside of the cloak. Now I'm not doing the back of the cloak, it's just the underside of this cloak in this color. Now that we have that cloak painted up, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come in with a metallic color, and this here is going to be brass, and I'm going to paint in, she has some jewelry around her arm. She's got these nice bracelets here, and I want to go with a nice color that's already complementing with that. It can be quite hard to see on camera, especially since I've got all the lights and everything on there. It can be a little bit hard to see it sculpted in. Hopefully you guys can make it out and it's close to a color. It stands out a lot more in person than it does probably on camera, but I'm just picking out these areas. Now you could totally do these in a gold or whatever color you wanted to hear, but for me, I was happy with a brass color. Now that we have those bits of jewelry picked out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with a bright blue here. I'm going to be using Void Shield blue for this, and I'm going to be painting the magical gem in the center of her staff here. This could also be a number of colors here. You may want to go with a very bright green in there, maybe like a crazy red, but it's totally up to you what you want to do here. I'm going with a nice vibrant pop out color and something really interesting and striking, and I think the blue is a great color for this. Okay, so now we have that complete. What I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to be painting up her cloak, and this is going to be the last sort of most complicated part of the miniature to do on this piece, as I'm going for a really dramatic cape that she's often depicted with a bunch. She has this nice cape that's made out of leaves that go from nice forest green leaves all the way down to sort of dead red autumn leaves feel. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with a green for this, and this here is actually the green I use for my highlights, but because we don't have the wash over top of it, it sticks out as a completely different color, and I think that's a great starting off place. And what I want to do is I want to paint the first sort of quarter of the back of her cloak here to get this color and this nice transition into this sort of rainbow leaf effect that I'm trying to go for. So now that we have that green down, what I'm doing is coming in nearly sort of as quick as I can in with a yellow. So while I'm placing these down and I'm getting these colors in between and on the next layer, some of the edges of these two colors is going to slightly mix together, and this is like a rudimentary form of wet blending. Now, by all means, I am not a master of this technique or great at this technique by any means, but I wanted to try it out here, and it would seem wrong to do Keyleth a disservice here if I didn't try and attempt this on her nice cloak that she's presented with. And now that we have our yellow down, what I'm going to do is come in with a orange, and I'm going to try and blend these colors together. Now, one thing that is got crazy with these colors is because I'm using yellow, orange, and then eventually red, these are all notoriously thin colors to deal with, and especially when I'm trying to blend them like this, and I'm using these paints here, which are the old army painter paints, and they sort of struggle to be thinned out and blended. But as well as that too, I think I've got them maybe a little bit too wet, so I was carefully having to go back and forth on the colors and the layers to try build these up, because I want to try and get as smooth a transition as possible and try and give it that sort of rainbow colored effect to make it look like all these colors naturally blend into one another. So it looks like, as her art, her official art tries to imply, that her magical cloak is showing all forms of leaves from the birth of the spring sort of leaf all the way down to the death in the autumn leaf, and that's what I want to try and go for here. I'm not great at it, as you can probably tell. You may even have a lot of tips for me. This is sort of my first time trying this sort of thing, so hopefully I can pull it off well enough to at least get the point that I'm trying to do across on the miniature. But with all that completed now, I'm going to come in with some highlights a little bit in the next step here to try and hopefully show off something interesting. But what we're going to do is we're going to go into those glamour shots. So let's see how my experiment came out, and hopefully the miniature came out good too. And with all that completed, we have finally finished painting up Keyleth from the Critical Role Miniatures line. So I hope this video has been helpful for you guys, whether you want to do what I did here, or you just want to use this video as some inspiration in painting up your own miniatures. But with all that said, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching, and I can't wait to see you all in the next video.